to Straight Facts on Friday. Sorry we are late. I had a problem with a few petulant children that I had to resolve, so I do apologize. You know what these damn kids are like. You know what these damn petulant children are like, so I apologize. Brilliant panel. Don is here with us today, man like Staffy, and of course the Lawless is here with us as well. Loads to talk about. Terry, go live on the United stand by mistake or something. No, I didn't. Yeah, that's a weird one. But yes, loads to go through today. We're looking at Arsenal's revolution, their £250 million revolution that Arteta wants to be the sort of puppet master of, according to a big news article today we're delving into. Does Cole Palmer need help? I've seen Chelsea fans online say he needs a psychiatrist with what he's going through on the field of play. We're looking ahead at a massive weekend for Manchester United in the FA Cup and having a little dibble, a little dip, dipping our toe into the debate of are Liverpool lucky this season or not. We have a brilliant panel for you, as already introduced. But gentlemen, how are you? How are you all? You all well and good?
Oh, I'm so good after a great week, and especially a great weekend last weekend after an amazing victory away at the Emirates over Arsenal, a result that none of you gave us a chance of achieving, but I knew it. I said we were winning, and we beat them. And like Joshua says here, we ended their season. We put the final nail in the coffin that was their title hopes in February. So, yes, you can all give me your congratulations.
I was sitting there, Lawless, and I'm like, bro, the one time I need a favor from Arsenal, and it's so funny that now I need favors from Arsenal to beat West Ham. Like, who would have thought I'm ever going to be in this situation as a United fan one day? And I was like, you know what? Fuck it, bro. At least Arsenal are going to beat them today. And then they lose, and I just sat there, and this is how you know I actually like you, Lawless. I sat there, I was so annoyed. I was like, you know what it is? Lawless is probably somewhere in London right now, just absolutely crashing it on some gooners. You know what, bro? Let him have his fun. He took the 3 points. I'm more in the mud, but at least my friend Lawless is happy. So I kept you in the back of my head. Like, I was thinking about you, Lawless. I was like, you know, bro, he's having a great weekend. So it was a defeat in terms of the what I wanted on the table, but you know what? It's a moral victory. Gooners can hold that. You know, I hope you crash it on them.
That's 3 years in a row, isn't it? You lot have been involved in crashing it on them.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it is. Yeah, because we got the draw at our ground, and then we beat them away the next season at their ground, and then this season again. So we are their nightmares. Yeah, they can have their little 6-0s, 5-2s, whatever. We ended your title hopes. Okay, so you can hate me all you want, but I've got the last laugh. Enjoy, and we'll be there next season. So don't you dare try and have another title race, because we will be there to end it. Trust me on that
one. More to come on Arsenal later in the show, so make sure you stay with it. Want to be touching on the conversation around the quality of the league this year and get the boys' opinion on that. Plus, big reports of loads of money being spent. Joshua Jack here says AWB got the assist too, Lawless. Yeah, AWB's been good.
Yes, Staffy's going to have to hold that as well, because he told me he was terrible going forward and da-da-da-da.
Hold on.
He's been great going forward.
I will say this, and KJ can vouch. Me and KJ had a conversation yesterday, and I said, I can't believe how this year Dalot actually took a step back in his game. And I look at Erwin Bissaka. I was right for saying he didn't do that for us. But the fact that now he goes to West Ham and I actually see the improvement in his game, it gets me a little bit bitter, because I'm like, why didn't you do that for us? But it gets me even more angry that he does that, and the right back that I rated, who was our player of the season last season, takes a step back and it looks like shit. So fair play to him. I will give him that. Like, I'm not going to be shamed.
Bargain.
You know what it is though, right? This is what happens, and this is why when it comes to me saying what Man United players are good and not good, I have to, I think, check my own language. They're not good enough. They're not good enough for us right now. Doesn't mean they're not good enough players. The fact is, the vast majority of players that leave Man United look better at their new club, stay fitter at their new club, perform. It's ironic that the guy that was struggling at right back under the pressure of being at United looks brilliant at West Ham, and the guy that I would say was not the understudy because he played a lot of football matches, but he was never trusted in the bigger games as an example, like the FA Cup final. The guy then that gets to step up and be the main first teamer is now struggling under the pressure and the spotlight. And I wouldn't be surprised if we sold Dalot in the summer and we bring in X player. Dalot goes off to play for Benfica, or he goes and plays for Bayer Leverkusen. I'm just throwing some names in there. And I bet he's amazing. And then we go, why did we let him go as well? It happens so regularly.
It's interesting. AWB and Amarin's system over Dalot.
He wouldn't. We talked about that. He still wouldn't, bro.
In the long term, you need someone who's much better on the ball. That's why Dalot has upset a lot of Man United fans, because that was the element of his game when he played at right back that we liked, the way he attacked and the way he went forward. It was his defending we worried about. Now, some of them, you put a clip out of it the other day, Staffy, and it was, I don't know if you guys saw it. I think it was at 1-1 maybe. And it was a really good bit of football by Man United, and we worked the ball out well into a wide position. He could have used, I don't remember who it was, but he could have used the player for an overlap. There was a cut back to Bruno Fernandes. He could have attacked the fullback and tried to twine him up. Instead, he plays some weird pass backwards and it goes straight to the lap and they counter-attack. I feel like he does that 2 or 3 times a game now, and it's simple. And when he was playing right back for us, his attacking was amazing. He was always running, do a little step over, beat a fullback. This year, he's got license to attack, and he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, but you know what it is, Terry? You know what it is? The thing is, like, under Ten Hag, I think he played his best football under Ten Hag, and he was used more in the build-up. When he was used in, like, the first and second third of play, he was good. The minute we started putting him a little bit more attacking, and let's be honest, he hasn't done that a lot over the last 3 years. When he started being requested, basically now, to have more end product and final third actions, it's just like he forgot what a fullback is meant to do, which is get into these areas. And if you don't have a solution, just whip the ball into the box, make a good cross, and someone will hopefully be on the end of it. And we've seen Dorgo do that a lot. This guy plays, and I said this to KJ, and he can vouch on this. I said, this is the Ronaldo influence on him. He plays like how I used to play on the park when I was as a kid. I used to just do hella step overs, thinking I'm Ronaldo, and just try to shoot from any area. And I'm like, dude, you're not Ronaldo. You're not even left-footed. Stop cutting the ball into your left. Why do you keep doing that? Like, look at the other side. They showed a little graph for the people who didn't watch the United game. They were showing the usage on both sides when Dorgo was still on. Our usage was 58% on the left side, and on the right side was like 18%, something like that. And the rest of the percentage was down the middle, which shows you that when he plays on the right, there's almost no usage compared to the left, which is makes it so easy to play against United, because now you know, just mark Dorgo, double Dorgo. That's it. They're not going to do anything from the right side.
I hear you on that. And look, it's a very, very big, before we get into the big weekend for Man United, the Red and Blues here says, breaking news, new cut from INEOS. United players and staff now are not allowed to flush the toilet with a big flush, only small flushes to save money. That's, do you know what? That's a really good, of all the things that you could cut, that's a really good one. But there's been loads of lies being made. Do you know what I love about it, right? The cuts are what they are. I've seen 3 different big aggregators share fake news in the last few days. There was one yesterday that Sir Jim has told the players they've got to start washing their own kits and bringing oranges to the games. I read it and knew it was a joke, but I've seen replies. A massive City fan called Ryan, the way he replied with, "Oh my God, they're meant to be the biggest team in the world. This is hilarious." And it's like, bruv, you're falling for it. So no one.
Did I say something on the super chat, by the way? Actually, big companies, obviously, they don't price cut by flushes like you said, but there's actually a thing to it. Big companies, what they do is in the bathroom, they make sure that there's no phone signals, because a lot of people during work like to go to the bathrooms and take like extended breaks. There's a lot of companies where you go into the bathroom and you lose all service. That's what they do to avoid you being on the clock and being working while doing nothing. So that could actually be something that they do at United.
Yeah, the thing with cuts as well that have been made, I did hear Gary Neville, and in fair play to Gary Neville, he came out this week and he actually, I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I saw a 2-minute clip from the overlap where he's kind of calling out the Glazers, of course, and speaking about the financial troubles that we're in. I still feel like people like Gary Neville started talking about this 10, 12 years too late, because the damage was done, if people like the complete damage was done, you've got to remember back in 2018, we still had over £350 million of cash in the business, even with the debt. But people like Gary Neville and Roy Keane and co were far too silent on the Glazers. And it was only a few people like myself and Neeks. Stephen Howson was very sort of vocal about this, but everybody else was quite quiet. But he did call out some of the INEOS cuts. The thing with the cuts, though, is this. Some people say, we're making cuts, there's no way we're spending money. That's not how profitability works. And this is why you've got to drop net spend in your head, because it's all about profitability. The profitability of the club is what will enable you to spend. You know, you could increase the ticket prices by double. The economic maths around that show that you could lose up to something like 60% of your foot flow, but because of the price increase, you make more profit because you actually lower costs at the same time. Because if, say, you had 20,000 less people turning up to games, but the ticket prices were double what they were, you're employing less ground staff, you're employing less police, paying for less police, you buy less supplies in. So in terms of food and things like that, it doesn't cost as much. There are less people, ironically, to that super chat, there's less people flushing your toilets, as an example. All these things save you money. So your costs end up reducing organically that way, but your profits are higher because the price has gone up. So that's why, listen, I'm not a fan of all the cuts that they've made. I don't think that, I'm not happy with the amount of redundancies that have happened at the football club. I still think, though, before we move on from that super chat, we've only been told half the story as football fans. And rivals and people that don't like INEOS are happy with half a story because they get to shit on United. I still want to understand how many other Premier League clubs give free food to all their staff. I want to understand how many employees the clubs that earn the same amount.
Is that what you're doing, Terry? Is that what you're doing? Yeah.
I'll tell you as to why. I want to know how many employees clubs that have a similar turnover to us have in the actual football club. I want to understand what bonuses they were given or don't give on match days to stewards. I want to know what the average wage they're paying their staff is. Not because I want to do up whataboutism, to go, what about them and what about this team? That's a straw man argument. What I want to look at is whether or not we're cutting away privileges that are absolutely essential and normal in the game, or whether or not we've just been the nicer of all the clubs over the last 20 odd years and we haven't cut those things sooner. Just to give me the context of how good or bad our behavior is. It's like throwing a stat out there. Imagine I give you a stat today, Don, that says, look at this, Cole Palmer walks around on the pitch for 22 and a half minutes per game. That's embarrassing. We don't know if it's embarrassing until we see what everybody else's walking stats look like. So for me...
I hear it. But the thing is, though, the thing that they need to do, if they're going to make all these cuts, right, especially to your everyday guy, because we can relate to them, right? We're all from sort of like working class backgrounds and whatnot. They have to make sure that in the summer, they spend, bro. You know, and I'm seeing today Amorim's coming out talking about, you know, we need to sell players to make ends meet and whatnot, because we know about United's finances at the minute. So you got to look at the bigger picture here, innit? Like, yes, you know, you might not need these people, but getting rid of saving $1 million a year, is that really going to bring us what we need going forward? That's what the debate is.
So the debate, but that's because you've been told half the story. That's why you mentioned £1 million, because you've only been sold half the story, or you've read Twitter. Because so far, in the first quarter that INEOS have been running this season, so from July through to September, we made about a £1 million profit, which doesn't sound a lot, but most clubs don't make a substantial amount of profit. They just don't do that because they're not run to make profit for their shareholders. They're run to make money to invest back into the squad. So you're always in and around. There's always losses at a club, and that's kind of normal. But so far, when you add up all the cost cutting that's been done at the club, you're talking about a 40 to 50 million pound a year saving. Plus, there's been an increase on tickets. Plus, there has been a saving of somewhere between 25 and 50 million pound a year on wages in terms of players that went in the summer, players that have gone out on loan, and there'll be a further reduction. Where I agree with you is that absolutely the spending needs to be very good in the summer in terms of this. I don't care how much it is, but we need to improve on the football pitch. We also need to be taking a lot of those savings, and I'm hoping we're going to start paying some of that debt down with it. If, for instance, that money's saved and the Glazers just take £30 million in dividends, then I've got a major problem because you've made people redundant to make billionaires richer. I'm calling it out. If over the course of time we're making the football team better, we're improving the club's finances so that we're not close to going bankrupt and going out. Because remember, if we go bankrupt and go out of business, everybody loses their job. So you've always got to be mindful of that. But the whole sort of £1 million saved in the canteen thing, it's not just that £1 million. If we're saving £1 million here, 500,000, someone said to me,
I understand that. I understand that. You're cutting.
But this is why I want the full picture to know whether I fully agree with it or not. Someone said, it's embarrassing you're making your caretakers count screws. But it isn't if we've got, for instance, in our lockups, imagine we've got 400 grand's worth of materials that have been ordered by the sort of maintenance teams over the years that's never been used. Now, as a business, that's just ridiculous to waste that kind of money. Now, somebody would say, but that's just one football player's wages. But that's just one small department of the football club that's wasting that money. I want to understand, and this is what the journalists should be doing. They should be asking the questions around why are there so many losses? How does this compare to other teams? Take a club we all think's run brilliantly and show us the differences, because I think it would give us perspective. Right now, when it comes to Man United, I think we're looking at United as a microcosm. And the one thing you get, I love this from rivals, but you're Man United. You're the pinnacle of English football. But you don't say that about any of our legends. You're always playing down Sir Alex Ferguson and his achievements. None of you hold our players in as high regard as you make out. You always shit on our club. You always say everybody else's achievements are better than ours. But some people lose their jobs, and that's horrible. But suddenly, you're Man United, though. You shouldn't act that way. Where's that energy when we do good things? Where's that energy when we win a trophy? Where's it? It's great to see the pinnacle of our nation win an FA Cup. None of you said that, you fucking dickheads. So I can't have the duplicity in the analysis of this from people. I'm just not buying this pseudo-moralistic stance that rivals take. I don't believe they actually care. They just want to shit on Man United, personally, is what I feel. Moving on from that, though. Very
passionate for an Arsenal fan to speak about our club like that.
Someone says, Terry, do you understand the meaning of company morale? I do understand the meaning of company morale. I run businesses. I've run big teams for some of the biggest organizations in the world. I get it completely. And redundancies are horrible. I'm not advocating, nor am I celebrating them in any capacity. At the same time, if the club continued to operate the way it was, with multiple departments losing money, multiple jobs that are not needed, multiple summers of hemorrhaging money, bad projects, no profitability. Eventually, everybody loses their job. And do you know what makes for a worse story? Man United going into administration. That is a worse story than what we've been through in the last few months. So the only time I'll change my stance on this is if the money being saved is being used to make the rich richer at Man United, and it isn't being used to save the club, improve us on the football pitch, and in the longer term, start to employ more people again. That's what I want to see happen. What would be stupid from a business point of view, it would be to continue to operate in a way that's been making you fail, so eventually you go out of business. That, for me, is a much worse way of behaving. If you disagree, you disagree with that. We can just have that disagreement. This year it says disgraceful from United. They feed the Glazers and bum players and take away food from groundskeepers is a madness. But again, when you say this, we don't know whether these cuts are being used to feed the Glazers. So again, if that's the case and all the savings go in their back pocket, we'll have that conversation on that day. But you're a City fan, so you'll understand why accusations with no proof aren't very nice, are they? So again, until you show me that proof that that's what's happening, how can you throw that accusation around? If it was your club, you'd be defending it. Do you know what I'm saying?
They actually have no shame, though. I saw that video of who's the one with the little hair? One of the Glazers.
One of the Glazers, yeah.
Yeah, Joe. They saw him, and he was just like, "I've got an important meeting with the president." And they're asking him, and they're like, "Are you gonna sell United?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "No, just leave me alone."
Do you know what's crazy about that as well, though? As much as I don't like him in any capacity, I can understand why an American meeting their president is a much bigger thing than talking about to him as a billionaire who doesn't care about Man United. I do kind of get why going to meet the president for him is more important.
It could have been meeting his girl. That would be more important than talking about United. But we don't give a shit about you guys. Let's be real. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And look, you can call me an INEOS sympathizer, but that isn't what I'm doing. I've criticized some of their practices. I've slammed their mistakes. But I'm staying open-minded. And all I'm asking the media to do is their job properly. Give us more information. Yes, we're making people count screws, but why? Was that department hemorrhaging money? If so, by how much? We've made redundancies. Who are these people? What were their job roles? Were they making the club a profit? Were they saving the club money? Were some of the staff? Again, would you feel? Just let me paint this question to the panel. It will be a real quick answer. Forget it's Man United. If you heard that 20 people got made redundant today, your gut reaction is, oh, that's sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What if those people spent 90% of their day doing very little work because there was very little for them to do because the company was overemployed? Would you feel as guilty if they weren't really doing a job? They were just kind of there.
No.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd still, it'd be sad.
It's
But
not,
you would.
it's not nice for the individuals, but you wouldn't look at the business as being nasty. You'd say, well, I kind of. And the reason I say this is when I first joined Barclays, I can say this now, I've been gone a long time. There's no more confidentiality clauses. I joined before the big crash in 2008. But when that crash happened, I was only 6 months into my training. I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't even really know what PPI was because I was such a low level at the time. But what I started to realize is that there was loads of these people at area level who had, so the way the area worked, you had like 7 or 8 branches in East London. And then there was like an area hub where the head office of East London was. It was at one of the branches. And you had the area director, the area performance manager, and then like 2 PAs that looked after them. But when I first joined, the area director, I won't say his name, was a guy called John. And he had like about 10 or 11 women and men that worked outside of those 4 roles already mentioned. And they would come to your branches and do these mystery shopping things, and they would check everyone's been... They do all these like kind of admin-y roles. When the shit hit the fan and the bank started losing all this money because of the crash, because of PPI, because the bank lost all these court cases where it was charging ridiculous amounts of money for going overdrawn or direct debits bouncing. This was how the bank was making so much money, and it was bad money. It should never have been doing it, and it rightfully lost all those court cases. Suddenly, redundancies had to happen because the retail bank suddenly was losing billions of pounds of income, as an example. And it was like, damn, we've been paying all these people, but we can't afford to anymore because the income's been pulled back. Suddenly, I learned something. All the people in the area team, barring one, got made redundant. Turned out that they weren't even real jobs. They were people that were cashiers or personal bankers or assistant managers who were nice people, but had done a really bad job in their day job. And instead of them rightfully being performance managed out and better people employed, they created these roles for them. So on their contracts, it still said they were cashiers in a branch. But what they were doing is like an area role, doing some admin. But as soon as redundancies had to happen, they were the first to go because there was no work for them. They were creating jobs that didn't even exist, if that makes sense. And I know this happens at a lot of organizations, ones that are greedy, some that are bloated and poorly run, that you get these these sort of workforces that are just not needed in reality. And I'm not saying that happened at Man United, but I've experienced it and I've seen it on multiple occasions. My question is to these journalists, give us that information, because I think that could potentially change how the redundancies are viewed. Good, bad, or indifferent, it will change things. And that's my whole problem with this entire sort of news cycle is we don't know enough information. We think we know what's going on, but we have a very, very small amount. And that's all it is for me. So I'm not a sympathizer of what INEOS are doing. I'm asking for more information before I give a complete and utter conclusion. Because how can you can't even do the equation unless you have all the variables, let alone give a final answer. But moving on from that, sackable tea ladies. No, we didn't have any tea ladies. We had tea machines. Listen, big weekend for Man United. How do you think we'll get on, Staffy, against Fulham?
Ooh, tough game. We don't really do well against Fulham. Last time we played them, you guys remember that deflected goal from Martinez. And it was the lowest XG game in the Premier League in 2 seasons. So it was a very, very, very boring game. And just to make it worse now we're actually weaker compared to that side that we put out that day. Martinez, obviously, season's over. Ahmed's season is over. Dorgo sent off last game, so he's going to be suspended. So we're not actually going into the game with a very good squad. Look at Z in the chat saying we did the double over them, Staffy. All right, if you think that meant that we played well and it was a comfortable game, then just don't listen to me. Yes, guys, we did the double. Yes, we'll smash them. There you go. Segment over, Terry. Move on to the next segment. Listen, it's going to be a tough game. Are we home or away? I believe we're away.
Home.
Are we home?
We're home.
Oh,
last time they played you at home, they beat you, bro.
That's what I'm saying. We don't really do that well against them. But listen, Marco Silva.
Sorry, guys. Whoever's got their phone vibrating on their desk where their mic is, could you take it off for me, please? Is that all right? It's really loud.
I
Is
don't.
that you,
have-
Lawless?
sorry,
That's Lawless. Yeah, that's Lawless.
It's over there. My desk is there. It's a long desk.
Oh, is it now? Compensating, eh?
That's it. You know it.
But what was I saying? Nah, it's gonna be a tough game. It's gonna be a tough game.
You're doing the
Every
treble
time
over Fulham. That was it.
was that?
You're doing the treble over Fulham. That's what you were saying, right?
Well, we could.
No, that's
You've
not
done
what
the
I was
double.
saying. That's something
You
that
get
you would say, Lawless. I'm not very confident. Listen, there's a lot going on right now. Our squad is getting thinner and thinner by the game. If it's not injuries, it's suspensions. And I'll be honest, most of these players are not performing well anyways. I feel like we go into games, and there's games where I generally feel like we're playing like with 10 men or 9 men. Like you have Onana, who's right now, he's a ticking bomb. Every time you're expecting a mistake out of nowhere for him. You got Højlund, who honestly, no matter how bad this kid is, it's just like it doesn't make it better that he has generally zero confidence right now. So he feels like an absolute liability on the pitch. You have ex-legends beefing with team captains. You have fans asking for a 17-year-old. See, I almost slipped and said 19. A 17-year-old. They wanted to start because of how bad Højlund is, as if this guy's gonna do anything when he matches up with Bassi, Anderson, and Issa Diop. It's not really looking good. I'll be honest. And for a performance that I thought would have been nice last game against Ipswich, because we did start the game well, we were keeping the ball, and we just basically self-sabotaged with 2 goals. Gave them one that might as well would have been. You might as well would have called that an own goal for what Onana did in that first goal, him and Dorgo, and then obviously the second goal where we conceded.
Who you blaming more for that as well, Steffi? Because bro, there were so many games. Or me and Terry were speaking about this. Yeah, like I couldn't watch all the games, so I saw the clip of it. But who would you blame more for that?
First of all, when 2 players miscommunicate, you give the blame on the communication, at least half the blame on them. So 50-50 between them. It's always shared. It reminded me of that clip. Remember Maitland-Niles? Leno came off his line and he was like, why is man coming off his line, bro? That's what I thought of. I'm like, why is Onana come off his line? Because yes, the communication, maybe Dorgo should have heard the shot or whatever. But when you look at where the ball is going and how the defender has it covered, there is no need for you to run all the way off your line to the edge of the box like that. It was so unneeded. And that's the thing about Onana. Like Terry was saying this earlier about players who leave United and they play well. I promise you, the minute Onana leaves United and he's no longer in Old Trafford with whatever curse we have over there and whatever hyena we have buried under that turf, the minute he's gone, he will be a normal human being again. Because the lapses of focuses this guy has, I don't know if it's because the club is toxic. I don't know if is it because of the pressure. I don't know if it's because he plays under 75,000 fans every game. He just loses focus. Like I just generally don't think he uses his full brain capacity when he's playing for United. And his decisions just show it. Like he's making every wrong decision more times than not. And it unfortunately is going to keep continuing until this guy's gone. And he needs to go in the summer. Like he's another one of these players. I feel like we sit here every show, every game, every watch along, every reaction. And as United fans, we make a list of who needs to go first. That list never ends. And the priorities on this list changes every game. Because you never know who's going to have the biggest stinker every game. It's one game Onana needs to be the first one out. It's one game Casemiro needs to be the first one out. It's one game Højlund needs to be the first one out. It's one game Bruno needs to be the first one out. It's a consistency of inconsistencies with these players, I'll be honest with you. And I go into every game, and Terry will probably tell you that. We just watched the game, and we're like, bro, what kind of chaos we're going to watch today for these next 90 minutes? Because I'll tell you this, if you're a neutral, bro, just strap in and watch United games. Every game, I promise you, this surprises. We're more entertaining than WWE. I'll tell you that. Because when WWE is on, you never know who's returning. When United are playing, you don't know what kind of mistake is going to happen today and what kind of adversity the team is going to face today. We're just like a weekly episode of a series, bro. You never know what's going to happen. So just tune in, bro. Just tune in.
Yeah, man. Howler. That guy's a howler of a keeper, bro. What do you think is going to happen? Like, do you think you're not going to sell him, though? I don't see you lot selling him this summer.
We didn't pay a lot for him, to be fair. So it would be kind of easier to move him on. I think we signed him for like 35 million pounds. Which was like almost 40-something million euros. So, like, when you look at all the bad signings United done over the years, financially at least,
this is one of the cheapest ones. Staffy, £47 million, according to BBC.
Did we pay £47 million for him? No way.
We were heavily interested at first, and he
So,
rejected
I
it.
remember it being a big fee for a goalkeeper.
No. Was it? Because I remember what's his
That
name
was off the back of the Champions League final, wasn't it?
Mo used to be very angry. He was like, we didn't get enough money for him. And that's why I remember it wasn't as... Maybe I'm mixing him up with someone else. If someone can
according
fact
to
check this, I
BBC,
don't
it
remember
was
how much he
47.
paid.
Yeah, I think it's similar to that amount of money. Listen, I'm not really worried about selling players. We will sell players, you know. Yeah, we just will. We will make a profit on the sale of someone like Onana. No, but I do think moving him on is a priority, because I think to grow as a team, we need to try and be stable at the back. And I don't actually think we've been a side under Amorim that's been peppered on a regular basis. Even in the games we've lost, for instance, you think about the Forest game and the Brighton game recently at home, the scorelines at 3-2 and 3-1 don't look great, but the goalkeeping errors in those games were just unbelievable. The Forest game, we conceded early from a corner, which is poor. We've actually kind of sorted quite a fair amount of that out in recent weeks, barring the whoever we played, the Everton game. But then we get back into the match with a better side. Second half begins. Gibbs White has a shot, so simple to catch, and the goalie dives the literal wrong way. And then there's another ball that's crossed in, really simple for the goalkeeper to come and catch. He doesn't, stays on his line. Bang out of all the goals that Wood has scored this year, heads it across and it bounces 4 times and goes in. I look at that and just think that isn't a free at the back issue. That isn't a system issue. It isn't a coaching issue. It's a goalkeeper making bad decisions. Those 2 goals were his fault. If he doesn't make those, I think the game's different. We're playing Fulham. Yes, they're 2-1 Brighton. They've had that number for years, really. But we're playing them. We're in the game. We're creating opportunities. Simple ball crossed in that he should be holding on to. Lets it go. It's 3-1. The game's over. I just think that if we took out Onana and we just put Alisson, might be a stretch because of how good he is. We don't need a goalie that good. If you put Sells from Nottingham Forest in our goal over the past 4 months, I believe in the league even we have an extra 6 to 9 points. Us with an extra 6 to 9 points right now takes far more pressure off this team than we're currently under. So I feel like a goalkeeper is really important. In terms of this game this weekend, though, it's probably the biggest. You've got Newcastle versus Brighton, which in terms of quality this season is probably a better game. But it's the biggest clash of the weekend, United-Fulham. How do you see it going, Lawless? Do you think United will get through it? Or do you think Fulham could sort of end any chance we've got of a trophy this year?
Fulham, I think, have won 4 in their last 5 games so far. So they're on a good run. It's just they've always got that blip, you know what I mean? Them games you expect them to win going into, like against us, where we beat them. They've got some issues in terms of errors at the back and playing out from the back that I think that Man United could potentially exploit. So it's a hard one to call, but I have to say Fulham are the favourites. You know, you've just mentioned Onana, who's always good for a howler, defensive errors that you've had, and that pressure at Old Trafford that seems to be affecting the players as well. There seems to be a pressure there that I think is getting to them. So if I had to go one way or the other, I just think Fulham at the moment are the more complete team. So I have to go with Fulham. But
they'll have the better team on the weekend. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
but mind you, by the way, with Dorgo, now we're going back to Dalot and Mazraoui on wing backs, which we know for a team that already struggles to score goals. Now we're going back to the defensive-minded wing backs. So it doesn't help us whatsoever. Like, you shouldn't really expect a lot of goals from United this weekend. Like, we had 2 center backs score for us last game. That's how bad it is. Our scorers are center backs. Say that again. Sorry.
It's going to be one of them games that's 0-0 for a long time, and it's just going to take that one goal to break the deadlock. And if I look at either team with the firepower, like, I just think Fulham at the moment have that proven quality. So I would have to go in. It wouldn't surprise me if Man United shithouse to win on this one. They've done it a few times. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, Fulham, it's on them. But you know what I mean? Like, imagine, Man United. Maybe it's going to be the case like Ten Hag. You're just at the moment a cup team. You weren't great under Ten Hag. You weren't really this bad, but you did it in the cups. You did it in the competitions. So
it's all crazy stuff here. You spoke about your recent record against them, but you've actually beaten them 4 times out of the last 5 games. They've only beaten you once.
Yeah, but you know what it is? Okay, Don, I agree with you. But you know what it is? For people who just looked at that and didn't watch the games, I can remind you of about 3 of these games ended on a last-minute goal. I remember the Garnacho.
I remember the Bruno one last year away as well.
It was a Bruno one last
goal,
year.
Yeah.
Garnacho the year before, the Martinez deflected goal. Like every game, we're like, oh shit, we left with 3 points. None of these games did anyone look how brilliant United were today.
True.
Like I feel like every time we took the 3 points, they were probably the better team. Which is why,
true.
like I'm saying, it hasn't been easy games.
I don't trust Fulham though, man. Like I think they've got better players up top right now in terms of their attack, because United's attack's one of the worst in the league, right? But it's who's he gonna start? You know, is he gonna start Muniz? Is he gonna start who's the other guy that they've got? The one that's played for Wolves.
Jimenez.
Jimenez. He didn't really play that well last time you played them. You know what I mean? And Traore's hit and miss. Like one game he's very good. He's direct. He's
always a Wobie that turns up against us.
They've just got what it is about Fulham. They've just got a lot of inconsistent players, in it. You know what I mean? I feel like they've got a lot of players, but you don't know what Fulham you're gonna get. You know what I'm trying to say? So I don't trust these lot to beat United. I'll be real. I can just see United scamming a win somehow. Fulham have the better players, like I said right now. They can put a better team together. I just don't trust them, Staffy. That's what it is for me. I just think you're gonna scam it somehow. Yeah, and like you said,
trust Man United more than
Fulham. No, of course not. But what it is, I've seen these lot against Fulham, like what Staffy's saying. Yeah, I remember that goal, Bruno, last minute outside the box, innit, away last season. Yeah, they were so shit that game. All of a sudden, Bruno just bam, magic. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man.
I think
hope Fulham turn up.
They don't mean anything, John. Like, what they did last season, we should take that for this season. It's different circumstances, different players, different management in some cases. Like, so yeah.
But they played them the other week at home, bro. Fulham played them at home and didn't lay a glove on them, pretty much. Like the whole game, the XG. I don't think they even had an XG of 1, both teams. It was the deadest game. I'll never get that 90 minutes back. It was so bad, right? I just don't trust Fulham. Their players are very inconsistent. But if they turn it up, then I think they'll beat United. But
they do work for something. I'm not gonna lie. Like we don't match up well against them. Their physicality, especially the way what's his name, their coach. I always Marco Silva. I don't know why I always forget his name.
I would say Marco Ruiz for some reason. Marco Silva. Yeah.
Yeah, he just the way they set up against us, it's just always a difficult game. When we play Fulham, and I'm not gonna lie, he was very angry over the last game. When we beat them, so he's gonna seek revenge. The biggest issue we're gonna have again, bro, is I feel like this is gonna be a very similar game to the Everton game. Ipswich didn't match the Everton physicality, which is why we didn't struggle against them like that. We will struggle, I think, this game with the physicality that they're gonna bring in the midfield, and that's when I worry. They have Lukic, they have Iwobi, they have Senderberg, they have players that can run that midfield. And that's when I worry, because we're shorthanded once again. As I said, now we have a suspension, and we were already shorthanded to begin with. And it just was going to be one of those again where we're going to be like, which midfield are we playing today? Ugarte has to play like 90 minutes every game now because he's the most physical player we have in the midfield. And you're always caught up in that dilemma. Should you play Casemiro in the midfield or should we play Bruno deeper? And I keep saying this. There's no circumstance in 2025 where you try to convince me that putting a double pivot of Ugarte and Casemiro is ever going to work. That guy's an absolute liability. They talk about Bruno, but they never talk about him. And I'm actually so sick of it because Casemiro is 10 times worse than Bruno.
Staffy is like, at the moment now, the be all and end all for your season. Like all the eggs need to go in that basket because you can't get relegated. No. You can't get into Europe. This could be the one sort of bit of I wouldn't say it would redeem your season, but winning the FA Cup would definitely make up for a lot of it, and then you get a trophy.
It'd be nice to win a cup but I'll be honest with you, Lawless, I'd be delusional if I look at my team and I think we're good enough to win any of these cups. There's way too many better teams than us right now that are better prepared and better equipped to win these cups. And I know what people are going to say. I got this on my channel all the time. Oh, but you're dropping the standards. Brother, I'm sorry. It's just saying the word standards doesn't debunk everything I tell you. I sit here and give people every logical reason why we are not better than some of these teams, but they're like, yeah, but I have standards. Well, I'll tell you what. Put 11 players and name them standards and put them on the pitch and let me know if we're going to win games.
Yeah.
Because that's the only solution.
Would you prioritize the cups, though, Staff? Like rest players in the league.
It is not up to me, Lawless. I love when people say that. Like, when people say prioritize, brother, I can go out there and put all my focus and my prioritizing on, I don't know, fucking dating like Beyonce or something, guess what? No amount of focus and prioritizing I do is ever gonna get me that. It's
Yeah,
not
but
really
you
up
get
to
past
me.
this, it depends on
It's
the
not in my
Happy.
hands. I'm not a good team.
Happy. Where I disagree with you slightly is I think right now we can't. I think we need some more points in the league. I think if we could get, let's just.
No, but he's saying about winning the cup, Terry. He's like, should we prioritize the cup?
Look at the teams that are left in it.
We can do that, Staffy. That's where I think you're wrong. Let's say we're in the quarterfinals of the cup and we get through this round of the Europa League and we've picked up, say, 6 more points in the league. By the way, we're not getting relegated anyway. It would mean Leicester in their last 11 games. Leicester and Ipswich would have to get 17 more points than Man United in 11 games. They've had 17 points from 27 all year. So on probability, we're not going down anyway. But let's say we pick up 2 more wins in the league before those quarterfinal games start. I would, at that point, if we were sitting, say, 12th in the league and we can't get relegated, I would be happy to play a slightly weaker team on a Saturday in a Premier League game to be full strength in a Europa League game or an FA Cup game if they were midweek. And I know what you're saying. We don't have a very big squad, but that's exactly the point. I would still rather go, right, you know what? We're going to start Eriksen and Casemiro in this league game and give some rest to some other players because there's a chance you get one-off games in the cup.
But you're missing my point. You're missing my point. I get what you're saying. For someone to prioritize a tournament over the other, it means that it is an option for you to put a better squad than the other squad. When people say put a weekend team, we put a weekend team every weekend anyways. Like it's not like when I rest these players and I play, we're not a good team. I don't know what to tell people. We're just
but it's not about being a good team. If you look at this weekend as an example, right? So right now we have got quite a lot of injuries out. Mason Mount's out, Evans, Martinez, Shaw, Dalot, Mainu. But what I'm saying is by the time these next round of games start, Mainu should be back. Collier should be back. Dorgu should be back. That's 3 of those players. Mount is started his recovery. So say you've got those 4 players back as an example. That gives you more options. I'm saying that later on in the tournament, there's no point doing it this weekend because there's 7 days until we play Arsenal. So there's absolutely zero reason to. Well, actually, we play midweek in the cup game. But there comes a point where once we're safe in the league and people are comfortable with that, yeah, there might be a week where we go, right, do we start Bruno in the 10 or do we give Mount a start? I'd give Mount a start in the league and save Bruno's legs for the cup games. I'm not saying you can do a completely different 11, but I would definitely prioritize the cup competitions for the rest of this season because
it's not an option. That's the all I'm saying.
Maybe
we're not strong enough to prioritize tournaments. That's all I'm saying.
I get where you're coming from. Isn't Mount injured? Yeah, but I just literally said Mount's on his way back. He's doing his recovery. I think he's be back after the international break. And there's literally like 1 or 2. There's a few games between now and then, but we will see.
If you're on his way back, didn't Amram say that there's no set date?
Yeah, but he's doing his.
There's no set day, but he's closer to return than Shaw, is what he said.
Yeah,
and that doesn't really mean anything because Shaw hasn't started a game for us over a calendar year, and apparently Mason Mount only started 13 games for us since we signed him. That is one signing that I'll always resent your club for. Like, if I ever sit there and I hate on Chelsea, it's because of that signing. Like, I'll forgive you for anything except for that.
But he's a ticking time bomb. You know you'll come back and you'll see what 2 games max. He's gone again. It's like Lavia, bro. I see a
like 45 minutes and he's out again, bro. I'm gonna make that social media post. Oh, I'm so disappointed.
Yeah. I get that. Let's get into these super chats. We're going to run out of time to go into the other subjects, which were meant to be much longer subjects. I always try and get United done quickly. 20 minutes, 3 minutes later, we're still on this fucking team.
Got 2 Man United fans on the show. You know what I mean? It's going to be
liking Amarim's experiments is what is said here. Thank you. Luke's encouraging everybody to hit the like button, so thank you. Sag says, if United 12th in an FA Cup, Arsenal 2nd and no trophy, United back-to-back better seasons than Arsenal. Can you imagine the banter era United against world-class Arsenal?
I don't approve this message.
Yeah, I mean, better seasons, but not a better team, generally speaking, but better seasons, absolutely. INEOS would sell Dennis Law's casket if they could. I mean, that's just disrespectful, man.
God,
Come on,
damn.
man. Come on, man. The Irish Catamol running his mouth about Bruno. Again, ridiculous to call. Listen, I don't think Roy Keane was right about Bruno. I don't think he's this big faker like people make out. But equally, I wouldn't call him the Irish Catamol. He was beyond a world-class technical football player, Roy Keane. Anyone who thinks he was just aggression doesn't understand the game. Great to see you talking with Goldbridge. If only all United fans could put differences aside and come together, we could get those scummy owners out. you know what, William? It's not about all of us coming together. It's about people being willing to sacrifice their own desires to get those guys out. As much as I'll support the protests, listen, if Chelsea fans want their owners out, if United fans want, if we want the power, but it means everybody giving up financially on the club. No one's willing to do it. So I still don't see it working. I just think we send out a good message. So you want an explanation from the media. No, I want the media who have access to seek an explanation. So I don't want the media to explain why it happened. I want them to do their job and ask the questions. If there's nothing wrong with how these people do their jobs and get cut anyway, what do you expect them to report? Well, I would respect them to say that they've cut jobs that were necessary to the club, that were making the club a profit, and roles that the club cannot operate without. That's, for me, if you've cut jobs that make the company profits or are essential to the day-to-day running of a football club, if we've cut those types of roles, I actually don't know how we're going to operate for the next 2 years. So that's what I want to know, whether they were essential for the running of the football club or whether we were bloated. Were they making us or losing us money? And companies, by the way, and it's not nice when anyone loses their job, but loads of companies do this. Oh, we've got a new venture we're going down. We've employed, listen, you all read Bleacher Report and Goal and the amount of redundancies these media outlets make every single year because they'll start a new venture. They'll start a new project. They'll invest money in it and employ people. If it doesn't work, they cut it because there's no point throwing good money after bad. So I know what your challenge is here, Red and Blue, but I want the media to ask the questions. Give me access to INEOS and the club and I'll ask the questions and let's see what they say. But the fact in all these reports, for me, that's the most fundamentally important question they're not asking. And I want to know why. This here says, Terry, you're a man that watches multiple sports. What are your thoughts on the NFL using technology to determine whether a team got a first down or not? I know they already use technology in the NFL, which is pretty good. Whether or not they've got a first down, that's normally the one area of football, American football, that's quite quick. Generally, it's quite quick between like the first, second, third, fourth, fifth down, unless there's a timeout. It's already fucking long as it is, though. An NFL game. If you're using technology after multiple first downs, I mean, how much more time is that going to add? But I haven't seen the technology. I have no idea how long it's going to take. So it's very hard, GK, for me to give you a definitive answer when I have, like I said earlier, to even do the equation, I need multiple variables to that equation. Therefore,
I don't even know what a first down is.
okay, yeah, I'm not even going to explain it because that would take long. Because I'm not that big. I'm not an expert on the NFL, and I'm one of I'm someone that believes if you can't explain something simplistically, you don't really know it that well.
So when you run with the ball and they tag you to the ground, and no matter how much footage you coverage or yardage you coverage, that's first down. You get to do it 4 times.
Unless you get a touchdown off a first down, then it isn't first down. It's a touchdown.
It is technically a touchdown.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
You just get 4 chances to run 10 yards, Lawless. If you do it, you do it. If you don't do it,
and every time you pass 10 yards, you say in the first one, it's your first down, and you run 12 yards, it's first down again. As long as you get past the 10-yard marker, you get the first down again.
That's a new first down.
If you're tackled more or stopped more than five times, if you're tackled 5 times, you lose possession of the ball. Even if you don't actually physically lose possession of the ball. So, yeah, that's kind of
if you don't run the 10 yards, so let's say you run 3, they'll be like, oh, they won't be first down. They'll be like 1st and 7. So it means now you need to go 7.
Bring that to the
second and
football.
7.
Bring that to the Premier League. Bring that in.
Oh, NFL hype, bro. I don't even watch it. I don't know what I'm explaining. I hate that sport. Let's just move on.
I like it. I think you explained it well. It made sense what you said to me, but maybe it's because I understand it. The NFL is too slow for me. There's more action in games of golf. That's bad enough. That's what I love about football. That's why I think football is the greatest sport in the world, because it just has a flow. Generally, it has a flow about it that most other team sports don't have the flow that football does. Rugby's quite close.
It's 48 minutes, Terry, because it's 12-minute quarters. So 48 minutes played in 3 hours. You watch 38 minutes. Very stop start. And that's why I think footballers as well, you think about why I think they are the pinnacle of team sport, is you don't get the breaks in play that you do in you have to continue concentrating because the game's on. You can't take, in a lot of other team sports, you get time to go, right, we're going to do this play now. Imagine you could huddle up as a football team every minute. You could huddle up and work out what you're going to do, talk to each other, communicate with the coaches.
there'd be far less mistakes. That's why rugby annoys me, though. In rugby, sometimes this is where I like rugby, but you'll see a player's in an offside position. The ref goes, "Don't touch the ball, you're offside. Don't touch it, you'll be offside. Don't touch it, you'll be offside." He touched it, and I sit there thinking, you were warned 3 times and you still did it. It's honestly like in football. Imagine you were told, "Don't run yet, you'll be offside." No, don't run. If you wait, if you hold your run, you'll be fine. Imagine the referee telling you that and you're still offside. It'd be crazy. Anyway, let's move on, because I wanted to ask you guys. There's big talk today, and I want to read you part of this article about Arsenal going into the summer. Will this improve them? Is this the right thing for them to do? And I'll read this to you now. It states, Mikel Arteta is determined to oversee a major shakeup with a big-name striker and winger on his hit list. Arteta is a huge admirer of Isak, but Benjamin Sesko, who is allowed to move for 55 million, is more realistic. There is also the talk of Semenyo or Nico Williams joining Arsenal along with Zubimendi. This is also tied in with a new director of football, with Dan Ashworth being one of the priorities coming in. So there's talk of Arsenal spending around £250 million this summer, a new sporting director coming in to add is someone external to the football club coming in for them to rejuvenate part of their team, add more firepower. But it does sound like Arteta is going to be the main man in this, in terms of the manager leading them forward. Don, is that the right thing for Arsenal to be doing? Investing more money into this team, buying the striker, buying someone like a Nico Williams and going again. Do you see those types of signings being enough to get Arsenal potentially over the line next season?
100%, man. 100%. I think, it's very clear to see that Arteta prioritize buying defenders over attackers. He spent more money on defenders than any other position, and right now you can see, bro, with all the injuries that they've had, obviously, you can't predict getting this many injuries, but even before that, it was only really Saka in their attack that was performing consistently this season. He gets their most numbers. Away from him, you're looking at the left wing options, Martinelli, Trossard. They definitely need an upgrade there. They brought in Kai Havertz, who's not a left centre mid. He's not a striker, so you've still got a hole in that position. And there's so many games this season, bro, where you can look at it and think, if they had a striker, very similar to Chelsea, if they had a striker at the end of those chances, they win that game. I can think of the game against Newcastle, when they got knocked out of the cup. If they had an Isak, right, that was the main difference in that game. They win that game. Against United, they had some crazy chances. Havertz is missing. If they had a striker in that game, they win that game as well. So that's got to be a priority, man, because this whole time you're bringing in Jesus, who, we know that this guy was not clinical at Man City. His best performances watching Man City week in, week out for me were actually on the wing. You know what I'm trying to say? You bring him in, you expect him to elevate his career and whatnot. He's falling off a cliff, Obviously, you bring in Havertz. So he's never actually prioritized bringing in a guy that knows that role inside out, because Arsenal defensively, bro, even this season, like I keep telling you, that's the main thing that's been keeping them in games, right? They've got a lot of draws this season because their defense is able to keep them in games, So I think it's now time to release the shackles, man. Trust your team. You've got Saliba and Gabriel, one of the best pairings in Europe. You've got Declan Rice, who for me ain't great as an 8, but, again, off the ball, he's very good defensively. He can help in terms of the counter press and obviously winning the ball back as well, right? And again, bro, you got some decent fullbacks. So the solidity is there. It's now time to prioritize going forward and winning games, that way, bro. That's what I would say for Arteta now. He needs to focus on the attack, man. Enough defenders. They've got enough defenders, bro.
But here's the thing, Don. Let me ask you this. And you don't have the answer for it, but I'm still going to ask it anyways. Isn't that probably the biggest problem with Arteta? Because you're saying remove the shackles. I don't know if he will. I don't know if Arteta as a manager and as a man, that's the way he thinks. I think maybe he thinks of his approach of football is a little bit more defensive than when we thought. Like a couple years ago, we probably thought he was trying to be Pep. He ended up being a lot more defensive than we thought he is. And that's why I totally understand, by the way, building the back line before you go forward. I always think it's a smart approach. You start with the goalkeeper in the back line, and then you move up the pitch. I think that's always a smart way to build a team. The thing is, though, I think his tactics and I think that the way he thinks as in football, I think he's just more pragmatic than we thought he would be. And I feel like this is the real Arteta, not the Arteta we see in the first title race when they were just scoring for fun. And I think it's going to be more of this. And this is probably the question that we should be asking. Should Arteta take over this project moving forward, not because of him being, oh, was he good enough over the last 4 years or not, or is he ever going to win a trophy or not? Is he the guy to actually start looking at football that way? Because I don't think he is. I don't think he's as attacking as Pep was. I don't think he's as attacking as Klopp was. I think he's much more pragmatic. And I think as long as this crop of players play under him, their approaches are always going to be more defensive.
Yeah,
So that's the question I'm giving you.
No, I get where you're coming from because, when you look at, we've known Arteta for a while now, but let's be fair, innit? We've seen him attacking teams and we've also seen him, kind of have PTSD from that first season where he's focusing more on the defense, right? That's what I'm saying. This summer is going to be a clear indication as to how he wants to play going forward. Because you've got to look at the profile of player that he brings in, bro, right? That first year they competed, Martinelli and Saka, there wasn't that much pressure on them to perform. They just had the freedom to play. You had Jesus came in, he gave them the freedom to play. Obviously, they had Saliba come into that season as well. Him and Gabriel had a good pairing. Xhaka offensively was very good that year. That's another position they're yet to replace as well. So, for example, if they bring in someone that's more attacking minded in that left center mid role, you bring in a better left winger that can offer you more goals on the left, right? Straight away, it changes how your team's playing. You know what I mean? Whereas right now, when you're playing Declan Rice, who's not an 8 in an 8 position, you're playing Havertz, who's not a striker over there. You're looking at the left wing, it's stale. It's going to affect how you attack. You know what I'm trying to say? So for me, I've got to look at who they look to bring in this summer, and that will determine what style of play he's trying to implement going forward. You know what I mean? Because right now they're a bit stale in it. You know what I mean? The attackers that they've got just aren't it. Let's be real. That's the main problem for me. I think if he brings in the right personnel, I think you'll see them attack a lot better.
Yeah, but that's the question. Can he bring in the right personnel? Because there's been question marks. We just talked about Havertz, Jesus, and players like that. Trossard, I thought, was a decent signing actually for what he was. I know he's not great at the moment, but for what he was, came to be in the squad player, I thought that was a decent signing. But that's going to be interesting. Can he spend the money well? Can he get his targets over the line? He was reported he wanted to sign Watkins. Couldn't get that over the line because of whatever with the board not releasing the funds quick enough or whatever. So, on paper, it sounds great, doesn't it? Like 250 mil, that's if he does get 250 mil. And then you can get all your dream signings and then you're the super team. It's all ifs and buts, We've heard this. We used to hear this with Arsenal every around this time of the season every year. War chest. Arsenal going to give Wenger a war chest in the summer. And what would happen? They'd just go and sign, Peter Cech. And that was it. So yeah, like if they do spend 250 mil, it's going to be a big boost. They'll get some flops, of course, but you got to trust they'll probably get some gems in there. And it's just whether
when you say you've heard this before, though, does that compute with the other side of the criticism of Arteta? That he's had £750 million and not one. Because if we're criticizing him for having money and not spending it, at the same time, are we still able to say that Arsenal never spend any money?
No. Listen, I'm not saying that they never spend any money, but Potts has made this, he's an Arsenal fan, but he says basically he feels like why they're not spending now and have spent before is because the owners want Champions League.
And they're achieving their goals, so that's it. No more spending, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're in Champions League. We're getting in coming out. We don't then have to go and push to get. And it was when they dropped out of there that's when they started trying to spend and get into it. So there could be some validity to that. We will see where their ambitions lie in the summer. If they are ambitious and they have that money to spend, and they go out and spend it, then that'd be big. Dan Ashworth is an interesting one because obviously we see what happened at Man United. I know Man United fans aren't rating him, and the talks of him wanting to get Southgate as the manager for Man United, wanting to keep Ten Hag instead of making the change earlier, that would raise huge red flags and question marks. Like if he's involved, I think in identifying players and that might be a worry. So it depends on what his role is going to be. Arteta, for me, maybe has a little bit too much power and sway in the modern game, like over.
Yeah, I actually think more so. Listen, I get the point about the upper limit of Champions League. this summer, I think, will be an indicator as to whether or not that's true. If they do go out and spend 200 odd million, it shows that I think that demonstrates they're not satisfied. It depends on who they buy with that money. If they go out and buy 8 youngsters, then maybe you could be right. They go and sign 3 or 4 really good players. I also agree with you. I think the biggest thing they've got to guard against and push back against Arsenal fans, and I think it's maybe one of the things they're ignoring the most, is the power that Arteta has. Whether you rate him or not, I just think in the modern day game, a manager having too much power is dangerous. You've seen the transition at Liverpool from Klopp to Slot, and that's because, typically speaking, Liverpool buy players for the club. They build what they build is for the club, so that when a manager leaves, there's a transition, and they've got that perfect. And Arsenal just need to guard, because whether he wins you trophies or not, Arteta, there's a day he's going to leave, and you always need to be prepared and ready for that. It's been spoken about for years at Man City that they always have a short list of managers. And when you look, or whenever you've looked at the names, now some of the names have gone off the boil since they were first read out, like Ten Hag. You look at the way those managers play football, and you can see the synergy in style between the profiles of players that Pep's been bought and those managers. What you haven't seen is a sort of a huge pragmatist link to the job as a replacement for Pep ever, because why would there be? So I think that's really important for Arsenal. There's a comment I wanted to put up here from George Harrington, who says, I've been seeing Kimmich, Shesko, a centre-back and left-back and right-back to be our lookouts this summer. I mean, I would be so surprised if you bought any more right-backs or left-backs, if I'm being honest with you. But yes, Kimmich's name came up today as a potential player that Arsenal might look at. He's not going to get a new deal from Bayern. He's going to be available for free in the summer. Is this the type of thing they should look at? You're shaking your head, Staffy. You think Arsenal should avoid Kimmich, in your opinion?
Bro, always stay away from these players that already achieved a lot. Listen, I understand what people are going to say. Oh, the mentality, but he's a winner. It rarely ever works. When you really look at it historically, the players that played in some of the top clubs that won Champions Leagues and leagues that are in their late age, I promise you, they never come in with that hunger that you expect. Their experience is much appreciated. Don't get me wrong. But they come in, they're on big wages, and I'll be honest with you, they rarely ever deliver. They rarely ever deliver. He's already achieved everything. Thiago, look at the chat. Chat is actually dropping examples that I didn't even think of right away. They come in, and I'll be honest, I'm not dismissing anything Kimmich achieved, but honestly, this guy grew up in Bayern, spent his whole life in Bayern, won everything in Bayern. He's German. He won everything. There is, I see very little motive to why he'd come into this Arsenal team and he'd be the one that takes him over the line. I'll be really honest with you. I don't think that's the right signing whatsoever. There's a myth that these winners come in and they get you over the line. When you really look at history, it rarely happens. It's more times than not does it flop than it actually works. You can look for leaders, don't get me wrong, but you can look for players that are ready for that extra step, and they come in and they actually want to win things that they haven't won before. There could be like players at that age, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a Kimmich. Like, I just don't see what a Kimmich does after all these years he spent in Bayern, when he come to Arsenal and get him over the line. I don't see it. Look at Casemiro as an example. He's been a pure example. Thiago, same thing.
No, facts, bro. And with Arteta, yeah, this guy needs to have some self-awareness, bro, because like you talk about these owners, yeah, the Cronkies, we know that these guys are reserved, right? They're going to give him the money to spend, but they're going to give you a little, you know what I'm saying, pocket change. Like, here you go. That's the money there. You go spend it wisely. Don't come back and ask us for more, right? So if they've got that mentality, you can't be overly taking risks. Kai Havertz was a big risk, yeah? I know he's come in and he's added some numbers and whatnot, but they still have 2 holes in their team after spending 65 million on this guy, right? Yeah. So it's time to now go for players that, you know, are proven. You've got enough evidence to say, okay, these guys can actually help us kick on now, rather than going for the hipster or, you know, the risky one, because you know the Cronkies, bro. If you blow that money, they're not gonna give you more. You know what I mean? They're not gonna give you more like that, bro. You gotta be careful. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is.
If you got 250 mil to spend, right now, would you slap it down on Isak?
Wait,
you know,
if you got
Isak is not going to Arsenal. Can we stop having this
No.
conversation?
What I'm saying, if you've Staffy, right? If you got 250 mil to spend, yeah, you're telling me if you paid the money, you paid the asking price, Isak wouldn't go Arsenal. If you,
I don't think they're going to spend that money though. That's the thing. That's above him. I don't think the Cronkies would spend that much money on Isak, because we spoke about this before. I reckon they'll probably be asking for maybe 120 million minimum, bro.
Yeah, Isak's
Yeah,
not.
but that's what I'm saying. You're saying he's got a 250 mil budget. Yeah, you're telling me Arteta with all his power can't say of that 250 mil budget, I want to spend 120 to 150 on Isak.
I don't really see the Cronkies doing it. I don't really see the Cronkies doing it.
I don't even think it's the right signing. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
Isak is amazing. I don't think he'll go to Arsenal, so that's maybe why I'm a little bit more dismissive.
Liverpool, but
I think they need a lot more than just an attacker now, because we were talking about them needing an attacker to win this season. But don't forget, bro, that every summer you go in and you get your priorities reset again, because there's players that are gonna leave this season that maybe, yeah, if they would have signed Isak this summer or this January, they would have just pushed them enough to win the league this year. But you go to the summer, your priorities reset again. Not only now are you gonna still go and find a striker, you probably still. Am I lagging?
No.
Oh, because I saw Laws just like, and I didn't know if it was me or him. You needed a defender now because you have what's his name, Tomiyasu and Zinchenko that need to leave. So once again, you're gonna go to another summer that you need a defender. You need a midfielder to play in that role that Partey probably won't be able to do. But you're getting in Zubamendi from what we heard. You need probably a new 10. Because I'm not gonna lie, that midfield with Odegaard being your only attacking-minded midfielder is not working, and you're still gonna have to adjust the striker and the left wing that we were talking about. If you splash half your money, which it won't be, by the way, 120 for Isak, it'd be a lot more. But if you splash half your money on just one attacker, you're left with 100 million to reinforce this team. It won't happen.
Yeah,
won't happen.
that's what I agree. I think Isak could be a brilliant signing for them. I know Liverpool are looking. I still think he's going to stay at Newcastle. Especially if these APT rules get completely thrown out and they no longer exist. They're going to have more money to spend Newcastle. They're ambitious. They're going to do their thing. But I agree with you completely, Staffy. I think Arsenal need to look at this and be sensible. The striker they're signing, in my opinion, is going to be Benjamin Sesko. Some people like him. Some people don't. Look, I was looking at just these goals I was looking at. Two seasons ago, so 22-23 season when he was 19, 18 goals. Last season, 18 goals. This season so far, he's on 17 goals. So he's tracking to have his best season ever. He isn't as prolific as Erling Haaland was. Absolutely not. But he's going to cost them around 55 million. Is he better than what they've got as a number 9? I think he's much better than Kai Havertz. And I think he's much better than, as a goal scoring point of view, he's light years ahead of Gabriel Jesus. But it's what else they bring in with that money. I think the Zubamendi, when look at midfielders, well, whether you play Kimmich, I think if they sign Kimmich, they'd look at it as a midfielder. I don't see why they'd sign another right back because Ben White and Timber are actually really good. I just don't think that's an area.
Arteta's a dodgy one, bro. This guy loves Swiss knives.
Okay. He might do it. I'm talking from my perspective, though. I can't. Even if you brought Kimmich in, it's got to be to go in midfield. But even then, I feel like they've already got Declan Rice. I'm not saying Rice is better than Kimmich. But you've already got a brilliant midfield player in that regard. They need more, I think they need someone like Zubamendi, who again, I think is going to be cheaper than Kimmich, an amazing profile for them. So you could literally sign Kimmich and Šeško, you could literally sign Zubamendi and Šeško, and you're talking about a combined spend of 110 million. That's cheaper than Isak. Then there's Semenyo and Nico Williams they're looking at. Again, those deals are rumored to be around 50 million pound. Suddenly you've only spent 150, 160 of the 2 to 250 million pound pot that's being discussed. And I think you've massively improved your squad. If you were to throw in Semenyo from Bournemouth, Zubamendi and Šeško now, well, if you bring them in 2 months ago, I don't think Arsenal will sit in 13 points off the top of the league. You've then got room to spend more money. Maybe you do bring in, because I know that Arsenal fans are not particularly keen on Kiwior being their backup centre-back. Maybe you go out, and I think what Arsenal maybe should do with their money is look at a long-term option to Saliba, because I think whether Arsenal become champions of England or Europe or not, I think he's destined to become a Real Madrid player. Similarly to Cristiano Ronaldo at Man United, it didn't matter what he won with us. We could have done back-to-back Champions Leagues. I still think he'd have left to go to Real Madrid. There's like a destiny element there. So maybe what Arsenal also have to do is look at a new centre-back who plays a bit of a bit part role season 1, covers injuries, suspensions, rotates in cup games, but maybe there's a longer-term view for that person to replace Saliba when it feels, because I feel like inevitably he's going to leave. I also think another area where they've got to look to spend money is in Odegaard's position. 2 seasons ago, Odegaard scored 15 or so goals. He was creative. He looked brilliant. The last couple of years, those goals have been drying up. And look, he does some really good stuff on the game. And I feel a bit sorry for him sometimes because I'm calling you out, Dom, but hypothetically, right? And it'll make sense when I say that. Someone like yourself will always talk about that. Okay, get rid of the goals and assists. Show me what else you did in the game. Odegaard does loads of good things in the game. He picks the ball up from deep. He plays the ball through lines. He orchestrates the attacks in many ways. That element of his game, I still think is very good. But this season, his final ball has been off, and his shooting and goal scoring this season has been horrendous beyond. But it's been horrendous. I don't think anybody would deny that. Him and Martinelli are 2 of the reasons I think that Arsenal have regressed this season in terms of their ability to maintain a run in this title race, because neither of them have got anywhere near close to that 22-23 season's levels of scoring goals. So they need to replace them. So I think they've also got to look at a kind of attacking midfield player, a cam or a 10. I don't really care for what phrase people want to use. I don't know what's fashionable. I don't know what the conformist view on those positions are. I just call them attacking midfield players.
They need a midfielder that can add GA to the team.
Yeah, add more goals. Yeah, absolutely. So
I think they've already got that, bro. They've gone Nwaneri, bro.
Again, I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in the Nwaneri basket. He's 17, turning 18. I think what they need to do is they need to go out and buy someone who is 24, 25, 26 years of age, has maybe some Premier League experience, La Liga experience, been at a top level. They can go out and bring that person in. They tried it with, not from that league. They tried with Fabio Vieira. He never really cut the mustard. They need someone that can challenge Odegaard for his position, even if Nwaneri's better than him. Let's just say he is better. I just think he's too young to throw that. And I'm using everybody's criticism of Arteta as being, you've used Saka too much from a young age. His body's now breaking. So I just feel like we can't advocate for him to then do the same thing with Nwaneri. I still think Nwaneri needs to be used somewhat sparingly, only because of his age. And I think they've got to bring in somebody more established, which is why I think Staffy's right. They go out and drop 150 million on one player. Even if the budget is as high as 250 after sales, there isn't enough left to address all those areas. And I think that, because Brandon said something after the Arsenal game the other day, Arsenal need 5 or 6 players. And I didn't challenge it, because I don't challenge everything people say. And I was sitting there afterwards going, what does he mean? Because last summer it was they needed a goal scorer, and that's 5 or 6 players. And actually, when you think about it, they need someone better than Martinelli. They need a better number 9. They need to improve the midfield. They need a long-term replacement for Saliba because he's going to go. And you're better off getting that person now and integrating them as opposed to waiting for him to leave. And I think they need an Odegaard, either replacement or someone that pushes him back to that level of 2 years ago in terms of that output. Because I know people hate hearing this, but GA and output is very, very, very important. And it's ironic that the main people angry at Arsenal this season and with the players and with where they've ended up, the thing missing from their team is the GA. And people act like GA is not important. They're not going, oh, yeah, but we play nice football, hold on to the ball well. All of that stuff's great. But if you're not putting that ball in the back of the net, it counts for nothing. So no, I agree with you, Staffy, 100%. I think spending all of that on Isak, even if he was available, I think it's a bit of a waste. I think there's multiple areas that need to be addressed. And I think they can do that if the budget is that high. And there is bargains. And when I say bargains, I'm talking about really good players that are available for not huge amounts of money. There really is out there. And I think as well, the likes of, I'll tell you who'd be a great player that I think Arsenal should look at. People have said Cunha, but I don't think Cunha could replace Odegaard. Do you know who I'd like to see them have a go at getting? Gibbs White. Yeah. I'd like to get Gibbs White in that Odegaard role. It would intrigue me as a football fan. I wouldn't like to see it as a rival, but as a football fan, I think Gibbs White to Arsenal could be a great little bit of business.
Yeah, there was so many guys that he could have gone for instead of going for Kai Havertz, bro. You know what I mean? Like even people forgetting when Odegaard first came, that when he got loaned, right? A lot of Gooners that summer wanted Maddison, yeah. And Maddison might have even been better for this team long term because he gives you more numbers from midfield and he's quite similar to Odegaard in how he plays. You know what I mean? But yeah, like you're saying, there's Gibbs White there. There's Kudus you could have gone for. Obviously Rodgers, if you did some proper scouting, you could have gone for him. There's so many other options you could have gone for to fill that position, Terry. You're right, man.
Yeah. There's a few super chats here. First one says, Saliba previously said the only centre-back he has seen better than VVD is Ramos. Recently Dean Hulsom did a build your footballer. 4 of the 5 attributes were Real Madrid legends. Saliba, Houston pair at Real Madrid loading. But I think Howson, could actually be a potential player that Arsenal should look at this summer to sign as the sort of longer term Saliba replacement. He's very, very good, but yeah, he's a talented player. Thank you, Luke, for encouraging everybody again to smash the like button. If you haven't done so already, get that done. I've got a big question for Don coming up soon that he might not like, but we're going to ask it of him anyway. All the chat as if Arsenal exists in a vacuum. Other teams will spend big. Watch Liverpool this summer, for example. The competition is huge. Arsenal, 0 guarantees. But we're not talking. But we're not. Hang on. Hang on a minute. It's not a fact, though, is it?
Facts for what?
We're not talking about us. We're not talking about Arsenal in a vacuum. We're talking about their situation specifically. But within that, we literally mentioned Ronald, that Liverpool could be going in for Isak. We also mentioned that I said that I think Newcastle will keep him and spend more money. The fact we mentioned,
I don't think Ronald's talking about us stuff. I think he's talking about the general conversation. That's what because I get
I'm looking
at it as what
I do get that. But Ronald, what I would say is this: is maybe you're right about that. To be fair, I'll concede that. I just think that, generally speaking, there's a prerequisite that we don't need to sound the terrorists. That we're never speaking about anybody in isolation, acting like nobody else exists. We're just talking about the types of things that Arsenal need to do.
Well, like I was on Igal show in a preview that done the rounds on the no context thing, and he's acting like, and he was talking as if Arsenal exists in a vacuum because these players leave Liverpool
that domination thing. It's just there. Even when City got Pep, nobody predicted 4-peats winning all those league titles, doing trebles. You never know what's coming. When Fergie won his first league title, nobody thought that domination then. You know, people don't forget, from the first Premier League season until 1999, go look at how many of those Premiers Fergie won, right? It's crazy. He was the first. We were the first team ever to do the double-double and then do a treble. That 10-year period, nobody predicted. You never know what's coming. When Arsenal went invincible, there was a feeling that they would win the league for the next 2 or 3 years. They didn't. When Chelsea won 2 on the bounce, there was a feeling that they were going to have a run like Man United did in the 90s. They didn't. And that's not a dig. It's just you never quite know, really. So, no, I agree. Now that I'm looking at it from that perspective, I agree with the Super Chat. My apologies. I got that wrong. Big under-18s quarterfinal today. Arsenal United, yes, in the FA Youth Cup. It's on what YouTube channel? Hope if it's not on Man United's, I'll watch it because I don't give any money to Man United Football Club still, because Bun and Glazers is
that's no money. I want to watch it.
There you go. I wouldn't mind watching that either. By the way, that's why I'm a little bit gutted that young Obi's in the first team at the minute, because he'd have played in that game and it would be nice to watch him against his old Arsenal team in the FA Youth Cup. It'd be nice, but he is now getting game time for Man United, so that is great to see. I put out a tweet earlier, Don, asking the viewers for any kind of talking points they wanted us to discuss. One of the questions was, does Chelsea still have the best squad in the league?
Well, our squad's been weakened, man. I think a lot of people, you know, they've been trying to cook me about my take on my squad and whatnot. But I spoke with CB the other day on his channel, and he literally agreed with me that he believes that Maresca hasn't used the squad to the best ability that he could have, especially the bench, right? Over that Christmas period when I was coming on here weekly, I kept telling you lot that there's a couple players that could have been getting a lot more game time. Whatever people think about them, João Felix, Vega, Nkuku, and all of these guys, they could have done something off the bench to help us see out games, to help us score more goals, to help us have a different dynamic in certain games, but he chose not to use them. That's why you're seeing the likes of Vega and Felix leave, right? But at the minute, as we are, bro, listen, our squad's been weakened. Liverpool definitely have a better squad than us right now, for sure. Right? Our squad's been weakened because we got rid of people in the January. And at the same time, they've been quite lucky because they haven't really had to use much of their squad like that. You know, they've used their squad sparingly. That's how I want to use my squad going forward. But unfortunately for me, the likes of Lavia, the likes of Fofana, the likes of Reece that I want to be starting most of the time, they can't stay fit. You know what I mean? They can't stay fit, bro. So yeah, if you're consistently playing Tosin, Chalobah, you know, these sort of players week in, week out, you're going to see your team drop off because they're just not as good as your first teamers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But why you include, you know, these players, especially Reece James, is injury prone. So when you say we have a better squad and you're counting these players like Reece James who are always injured, you're not then factoring that in. If I've got a player that I know is guaranteed to get injured, I can't wholeheartedly say, yeah, like I've got a better squad because of this player. Do you know what I mean?
And that's where I went wrong as well, bro. Because for me, I didn't expect Lavia to be, injured for another season like this again. Like Fofana, we know what he is. Is a ticking time bomb. So that's where I've gone wrong, right? Because these guys, they can't stay fit. So most of the time, you're going to see your squad if you're starting these guys. And that's why for me, the biggest thing Chelsea need to do this summer is make sure that Lavia and Fofana don't think about them being in the 11. We need guys that are ready to play week in, week out, and on the same level or even better than these guys, right? Because like I told you, Terry, last season, if we can't keep these guys fit or key players fit, we'll never compete. We'll never kick on. And once again, we're seeing that again this season. Yeah, that's not the only reason as to why we've dropped off. There's many factors here, like Maresca's in-game management, Maresca's lineups. You've got the missed chances from Jackson and whatnot. You've seen Palmer's form right now. But as well as that, we've had, again, key players missing, bro. Lavia, Fofana, they help us play a lot better. They help us counter-press. You've got Fofana, he helps us play a high line. You've got Lavia, he helps defensively. Because people like to cook Chelsea's defense. When Lavia's in front of our centre-backs, he gives them a little bit more protection. Yeah? He gives the likes of Enzo the license to go forward and not have to worry about tracking back as much. Because as soon as we lose the ball, Lavia's there to sweep up, right? Caicedo can counter-press from the front and play as a box-to-box. So that's what these players offer us. But when they're not there, we're having to look at our bench and we're playing them too much. Yeah. If Liverpool had to play Endo every single game and Kwanzaa every single game, you're gonna see them drop off. I don't think they'll be this far off of Arsenal if they had to keep playing those guys, bro.
I hear that. I've got a question for you. I know yourself and fans like yourself and Chairs have been very supportive of your owners in terms of you've called out the mistakes they've made. There's no doubt, and I want to make sure I state that. But you've sort of backed the process and the squad that you've built. You believe it's one of the best squads in the league. You've not necessarily been happy with the managerial appointments. Do you feel, what is your take on the fans that are protesting? Because there's a lot of Chelsea fans that think it's a little bit self-indulgent, that it's a little over the top, that they've got to show faith in what's going on at the club. It's had some support, but there's also been a fair amount of criticism from other Chelsea fans. Where do you stand on this? Do you agree with what they're protesting against, or do you think they're just not showing enough patience in the project?
Yeah. Listen, for me, from day one, I've always said everyone that's disgruntled about what the owners are doing, they've got a fair enough point. But the issue that I've had with the protest, Terry, is there's a lot of people that are going there for their own personal gain and not really, there isn't like a clear focus on what you're protesting on, right? For me, the major thing that we need is you need to make sure that you're plugging these holes and continue bringing in ready-made talent, right? Go bring us a striker in the summer. Go bring us another left winger. Go bring ready-made centre-backs that are ready to come into the first team right now, right? Stop focusing on these injury-prone players. That's what we need to be doing, yeah? But people get angry at me when I'm speaking about the likes of Gil and whatnot, when in reality, that's what we're dealing with, yeah? If they play for Chelsea, I'm going to have to do my research on these guys, bro. But if it's up to me and I've got the 1.2 billion, Gil is going to be third choice. And I'll bring in an Osimhen. I'll bring in a Gyökeres. I'll bring in someone that can play straight away, yeah? And the other day, I even said on my stream as well, Terry, everyone on that stream that was watching me on Blue Diaries, right? If they had the 1.2 billion, we're all building a better squad than what Chelsea have built. So I don't, most of these guys that they're signing, I wouldn't sign them if it's up to me. But I'm a Chelsea fan, so I have to speak about them. I have to research them. I have to problem solve. How can they help us out? How can we use Gil? How can we improve Mudryk? How can we do these things? But people are like, oh, fuck them. Let's just get rid of them and bring this guy.
I've got a problem stuff. Like he's in the cube on ITV trying to work out how to fix Chelsea, No, listen, I agree with you about the mixed messages. I've seen people phone into TalkSport and very clearly state this has nothing to do with the on-the-field performances. And then when they're breaking down their issues, everything they're stating leads to, and it's impacting the squad, it's impacting the team, it's impacting the manager. Well, then it is about what's on the fucking field of play, right? Because
did you see that one, Terry? The guy, I think he's in charge of the protest, or he's not in charge. He's one of the head geezers, right? And he called into Jim White and Simon Jordan, right? And he had this big back and forth with them. And I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, at the end of it, I don't know why the fuck Chelsea are protesting. It was, like you said, mixed messages. It was so confusing. I don't know if you see that, don't know you guys see it, but I remember sitting there, like a few of the Chelsea fans shared it, and I'm like, let me sit and listen to this.
And that's like, that same guy, he admitted on that phone call that he was one of the guys that was singing, "We've got our Chelsea back," right? Yeah. And then now all of a sudden he's on the other end of the spectrum. And for me, that's just like, unbelievable for you to say you've even got your Chelsea back, because I'm only ever going to say that once we're winning again and once we're competing again. That's the Chelsea that I know, right? Not Chelsea top of the league or second at Christmas. Like that's not I've got my Chelsea back.
It's not years ago he was singing that. That's like months ago he was singing we've got our Chelsea back.
Yeah, and he literally said he was one of the people singing it. He said, oh, it's got nothing to do with what's going on the pitch. But it does, bro. It does, because if we were still winning those games, you wouldn't be out here protesting right now. You know what I mean? They're angry because we haven't picked up many wins recently, and now they're focusing on the squad building again. You know what I mean? So for me,
what the protest is about, squad building. Like, what is the protest actually about? Like, what are they saying?
There's many things here. There's a lot of people that don't want us to sign any more young players. For me, I don't mind the whole young player thing, flipping players and bringing in more profit, right? If it brings in more money. But I've always said you still got to make sure that you're bringing in ready-made players for the first team. Yeah, there's some that want the owners gone, and I think for me that's just wasted energy. They're not going anywhere, right? They're not going nowhere, bro. You know what I mean? There's some that, you know, I don't know. they want Maresca out. There's just so many different agendas, Lawless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's never gonna work.
Some people just want pictures taken to say, yeah, I was there. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I feel like there isn't a clear goal that everyone's going for right now. But I've always said everyone has got their reservations, but clearly, because I've got my reservations too, they can have their reservations. If you meet a guy, there's a guy called Robert Terry. I need to introduce you to Robert. He is the biggest Clear Lake cock. Yeah, he loves everything that they do, bro. Everything that Clear Lake do, Robert is there. You know what I mean? Like they're barrister. You know, so he'll make me look like CB. You know what I mean? So it is where it is. It is where it is, man.
Yeah, no, I've been confused by the message. There's no doubt, but you always get people as well that hijack. That's why Man United fans, I think, fell out of each other when a lot of the first protests were starting during lockdown. And you know, I had death threats from people saying, "When you come Manchester next, if I see you, I'm going to do this." I remember Johnny, the United fan that used to make content. He went to the protest and actually was on camera with KJ, who was there for us filming everything. And people come up to him, and you kind of heard a bit of muffling in the background. Next minute, he was gone. I'm like, oh, KJ, where'd he go? He went, yeah, he's gone home. Like, people were threatening to hurt him. And it's like there was this kind of thing of you could see certain groups getting upset that a YouTuber that they didn't like was getting a huge amount of traction through promoting the same protest that they just care about eyes being on. You get a lot of that in that space, which I always find. It's also like some of the old United heads, guys that I used to go to away games with, that I had beers with, you know, knew them to a certain degree. They always used to get like phone calls to and paid by the news companies, TalkSport, for years to sort of be spokespersons for the clubs from a fan perspective. A lot of them were actually approached when the full-time Devils begun and were asked to be part of it. But they were asking, none of us were getting paid in those early days on the full-time Devils when YouTube first started, because we just did it for a bit of fun, right? We enjoyed talking about our club. These guys were used to being in the media. They were asking for money and there wasn't any budget, so they said no to it. Then what happened is that different people suddenly became attractive for the media companies to speak to from a fan's point of view. That's when they turned on. Ironically, that's when they all turned on the fan channels. Was when suddenly the fan channels were the people from the fan channels that they rejected being on were now being asked by, oh, there's an FA Cup final. The BBC want to interview a couple of fans. It was no longer these old heads that were being asked to do it. It was predominantly the guys like people like Flex that were being asked to do it. And there's always this kind of personal agenda that happens. I want to show that I'm the best. And it's very, very weird in my opinion. It really is. A few comments here. First one from Abraham says, this is back to the earlier conversation about Arsenal. He says, Arsenal too little too late. It's always the summer. I understand that criticism. At the same time, what I would counteract that with is, well, what would you rather the response be? We messed up and we're just not going to bother again, or we messed up and we're going to try again. As much as I understand it's frustrating, maybe you just don't want to see or hear any posts about it. At the same time, I'm going to be honest with you, it's your club. So I'm just speaking from an outsider here. If your club didn't brief the media anything between now and the end of the season, I think the response would be, they haven't even told us what they're planning to do to rectify it. I feel like when you're angry at your club, a bit like when all of us on here have had wives and girlfriends or have them. You know, when you have a bit of an argument and you may get this towards you or you might dish this out. When you're in a bad mood with someone, it often doesn't matter what they do. You find fault in it. I think there's a little bit of that's going on here, because I would much rather my club have a plan of how to rectify the mistakes than not bother and try.
Well, but there's talk of a plan. They have to see the plan. If you've seen your club do it time and time again, you just ain't hearing it. Like you're in the middle of it's February and you're essentially the title race is done. You're pissed off. No amount of talk of big spend in the summer is going to make that better or sweep that under the carpet. I think that's the feeling there.
I understand that. And I think that holds water as an example. At the same time, it depends on what I get that from someone who's a staunch Arteta outer, has never believed there was a rebuild, hates KSC and doesn't think they've changed anything. But if you're someone over the last 2 or 3 years that has said they've really been moving in the right direction, I've been really happy with the general approach of the club, saying now you don't want to hear them respond doesn't make sense, because you've stated over the last 2 to 3 years it's been a complete rejuvenation and rebuild. It's under new management. It's a different club in that aspect. It's still the same football club, but new people running it. It's the first probably bad season they've had in the last 3 or 4. Why would you have no patience in that group of people rectifying it? That's my only pushback. And not against the people that have never been behind the rebuild, because it makes sense. If you're never behind it, why would you trust it now? But if you've fully trusted it for 3 or 4 years, have advocated that you've got better and better and better 3 or 4 years running, you had your first season of regression really since it's all begun. Why would you not be open to the idea of it being rectified this summer? That's the people I'm challenging, like that sector of people. I've seen a lot of them. Like there's a lot of them I've seen like this week. Like one of them was really going in online on Declan Rice. Never rated him. Literally 4 months ago was tweeting he's the greatest DM in the world. I'm like, yo, what's happened here? What has happened here? It's crazy.
I told you on that one as well. I told you this was the season. Guys are going to start cooking that guy, chefing that guy up. Remember the start of the season, Terry? You sent that thing in the group chat talking about biggest underperformance and whatnot, like most assists and all of that. And biggest underperformer, I said Declan Rice. Big up David, because David said the same thing, right? I knew this was going to happen, bro. I'm telling you.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. It's more on Arteta. I'll be really honest with you. I'm watching this guy pick up the ball from the halfway line, and he's meant to be the guy to drive. Remember when he ran outside the pitch? He's supposed to carry the ball for about 40 yards, and I'm like, when you have a Rice in your team, you identify him for what he's good at, and he's not a great ball carrier. He's okay with it, but not for like 30, 40 yards. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, you're supposed to limit the amount of touches he has on the ball in the build-up. Instead, you have him carrying the ball for 40 yards, and people are laughing at him. Like, what kind of management is this? This guy, bro. I swear to God.
That's my point, though, Staffy, because for me, it's like, it's mainly on Arteta because he's not an 8, right? And even watching this guy, you could just tell he's not an 8. But there's just so many Arsenal fans that just...
he can be an 8.
If Arteta wants him there, just play him there. The other day, he didn't play as an 8. He played as a 6, which is fair enough. But for me, I think you'd see better performances from him if you played him next to someone in the pivot, right? But he don't play a 4-2-3-1. He plays a 4-3-3. That's the issue.
That's what I'm saying. He could be an 8, Don. Listen, he could be an 8 if he has just minimal responsibilities on the ball. Like, I'm not gonna make this comparison directly, but like Casemiro's an example. In his prime at Madrid, he had limited touches in that midfield, but that's because he had Cruz and Modric. I'm not comparing them to the same to the same player, because Casemiro in his prime is way better than Rice. But that makes my example even better, because someone who was actually better than Rice still had a very limited role when it came to.
That's why they need what Arsenal's central midfield needs. It needs someone of the Zubimendi range whose passing ability from a deeper position is very, very good. Someone who dictates that. You know, they need. I think you get a different Rice in that regard. Having said that, I thought Rice was very, very good last season. He hasn't had a great campaign this year, and it's one of those things where he's got to rectify it next season. There's no doubt.
105 million, $250,000 a week. You're going to get a spotlight on you, and you're going to have to be expected to perform to a standard that matches those wages and that price tag. You know, so that's just the way it is. You want to make the step up, you got to get that smoke. You know,
no, I hear it 100%. I think Arsenal that's why, by the way, and it's interesting when you say that, because last night I was getting cooked by people for saying that I wouldn't put Harry Kane in the top 10 strikers in Premier League history. And my reason for that is because I don't ever think he was never in enough title races, and he wasn't at the clubs where you get that smoke. Handling that smoke, handling that attention, handling that media and fan pressure, handling the expectations of your own club in those circumstances, and delivering like Andy Cole did, like Aguero did, Henry did, Drogba did. That's the difference between Harry Kane and all those other Premier League legendary strikers. Technical ability on the ball, goal scoring, amazing. But there is something different when you're in those environments. I think it separates the brilliant players from the great players. And that's what Rice is going through now. He's getting the scrutiny. It's about handling. That's why a lot of United players have shrunk in the last decade. That you come to Man United, you get that scrutiny, you have a few bad moments, you have a few bad games, and the world and these dogs turn on you. And you've got to be a certain type of person to be able to handle that. This here says, I think Arsenal just need an A striker, Dalot, Chris Wood, etc. They have to worry about the left wing or right wing, CB, and a 10. I think Arsenal, though, you need to be mindful as well. I think like every summer, you should be adding 2 or 3 new players to a team, taking some people out, even if they're good, to keep things fresh and keep things.
That's what I said. Every summer you reset to begin with, anyways. Every team, every summer, you reset your priorities. But now you also have last year's priorities that you didn't get in. So that's extra work.
One of the dads when I was still doing my martial arts, I remember when Arsenal went invincible in 03-04. And I remember it was right near the end of the transfer window, or maybe the season had just begun. And one of the young ladies who trained with us, we're part of the same squad. Her dad Bobby picked her up, and he was a big gooner, and he was in a foul mood. And I must have been about, what was I in 2004? So I was about 17, 18. And I was like, "Oh, Bobby, what's up, mate? What's the matter with you?" And he went, "Oh, it's fucking Arsenal." And I watched football back then, but I was in the midst of my martial arts career, so I weren't following other people's teams as closely as Man United or anything. I said, "Well, what's wrong with Arsenal? They just got invincible." He went, "We ain't bought no." I want to say it was the invincible season. It might have been a couple of seasons before that, to be fair. But it was one of those seasons, but it might have been 02, it might have been 2004. Gooners will remember the summer when I say what I'm about to say. They didn't buy anyone. And he went, "You never do that." He went, "Fergie never did it." He goes, "You've got to add new players in to keep everybody hungry, to try and, even just to give opponents a bit of a question mark. Oh, what's this new striker going to do? What's this new midfielder going to do?" To give something different. And I remember he said it. And then that following season, they didn't win the league. And I remember later on, we were away at a tournament somewhere. I want to say we were in Switzerland, and it was Switzerland. We were in Lake. I remember being on a boat in Lake Geneva. And I remember saying to him, "Oh, yeah, you were right." And he went, "Yeah, I told you." He goes, "It's just ridiculous not buying players." It might have been the summer of 2000 where they didn't buy anybody. But yeah, you've always got to add players to a squad, no matter how good you are.
Talking about when you were 16, 17, Terry, I watched the Arsenal Leeds game yesterday, that 2003 season, Viduka, when you lot won the league. Yeah, I watched that game. Back.
You just watch random games from the past, Don. It's so funny. Like,
I like it, man. I was too young to watch it at the time, bro. Sometimes I'm just working. I'll go on Sky Sports. I see retro. I'm like, let me slap that on, man. Let me see what.
Yeah, do you know what? I implore people to go back and watch that stuff and watch older games, because you go back and watch it, and I don't think people realize how good certain players from those they get spoken about now. There's certain players that you look at and everyone goes, "Yeah, he was great," but have people actually gone and watched and actually done the reviews on that? Yeah, by the way, I think it was the summer of 2002. Oh, no, you signed Gilberto Silva that year, and Pescan Sigan. It couldn't have been the next one because you signed Van Persie, and maybe it was that one as well where you signed some players that were relatively unknown. But it was one of those summers where you barely bought anybody. It could have been the 2000 summer, to be fair, where you signed Sigan, who was awful, I think. And then Gilberto Silva turned out to be a good player, but it was only a 9 million signing. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans at that point wanted a little bit more than that. But yeah, that was a great season that following year. Chelsea believe that too. Why they bought a village. Chelsea believe that too. That's why they bought a village, right? I get you what you mean. Rank Chelsea's situation versus every other team. Chelsea has a brighter future and maybe top 4 now.
This is the frustrating thing, bro. We've actually got a very good foundation of players like Enzo, Caicedo, Palmer to build from, right? There's just a few little positions there that you need to go sort out, bro, just to be serious, And it's not, bro. If you can go look here, Terry, we tried to bring in Olise, right? This guy, he literally gave us the green light to come, and then Palace were like, no, you lot tapped him up. We're gonna go snitch. We backed away from that. We went in for him again. Then Bayern Munich came in with more money and Champions League football. He rejected us, right? We tried to bring in Osimhen. He obviously wanted way more money than what was looking to pay him. Yeah, so they've tried to do, make big moves or whatever. But we need to do that again this summer and make sure we get them wrapped up. That's the main thing, bro. But we need a striker, bruv. Yeah. This season, I kept telling Matisse and that I smell blood because I'm looking at the teams around us. Arsenal are fucking about. Man City are fucking about. Right. I'm seeing Liverpool just the best of a bad bunch. Even though our defense ain't the greatest, I'm telling you now, Terry, if we had a striker this season, we're a lot closer to the top of the table than what we are right now. regardless of our defense, regardless of it.
So you saying Liverpool are the best of a bad bunch? Do you advocate the idea that the quality of the Premier League has been poor this year?
The teams around us, the teams around, like the teams that are usually top four, like we spoke about this last week, right? I think if we did our business like Man City, Chelsea's and that, we're still far from the Bournemouths. But because we've fallen off and we've been poor, that's the reason why it looks a little bit closer. Yeah, I'm seeing today like we're fifth, but we're 2 points from third. You know what I mean? We beat Leicester, we're back in third again. It's a joke. You know what I mean? So I'm just angry, bro, because Jackson puts away more of those chances. We're still up there, in my opinion. We're still up there, man. There's so many games this season where I'm like, yo, how the fuck have we not won that game? We had so many clear-cut chances there.
I understand, mate. You're not winning some of those games. It's crazy. This here said, Don, what happened to the Rico you made?
Don't worry, man. Don't worry. It's still there. It's still there, man. I can't use it. I can't use it yet. I have to let it marinate. You know what I mean? But yeah, we'll see what we do in the summer, man. We've got a lot of work to do.
Joshua Jack here, and I'll ask this to each of you three, and I'll answer it as well. But I'll go to Lawless first. Favorite match that didn't include your club?
Oh, that's on the spot. Like, you're asking me to pick out of the thousands of matches the favorite match that didn't include my club. They're probably the one I can remember off the top of my head, the Liverpool Man City game, where Gundogan hit the screamer. I remember I was in Cyprus watching it in a bar. And that was like, I believe the title decider pretty much. It's sort of that game, it sort of hinged on that game. So the drama, the goal, just off the top of my head, I'm just gonna go with that. If you know the one game I'm talking about.
Yep. What are you saying, Staffy?
For me?
Yeah.
There was a meme that's been used recently of a former Egyptian coach celebrating. They're using it on Twitter right now as like as a meme, like, you know, whenever good news comes out, they're using it as a celebration. People don't know where that video comes from. It was 2010, Egypt versus Algeria, last game in the group stage. Back then, they used to do group stages. The winner of each group qualifies to the World Cup, and that year we lost the away game in Algeria 2-0. And the last game of the group, we're second. We have to beat Algeria by 2 goals or more to at least have a tiebreaker. And the game was in Cairo. And I'll never forget that game. Probably the biggest game I've ever watched. We go and it's 2-1 and we need a goal and it's extra time and 2-1 isn't enough. We needed to win by 2 goals. So we need 1 goal for a tiebreaker. In 95th minute, a cross comes in for the right back. Striker heads it, takes 1 bounce, goes into the far net, far post, and we force a tiebreaker that we eventually lost. But at the moment, we forced a tiebreaker to make it to the World Cup. And at that time, we haven't been at the World Cup for about 18 years. And I'll never forget that. I was watching a game as a kid, and I'll never forget that day. We just got up and I was hugging mad people as we were watching the game. Everyone was hugging each other, and we don't fucking know who we are. But the country was it was lit that year.
I feel like you've kind of cheated there, Staffy, because even though he said your clubs, like you,
I know I
weren't
picked my
neutral.
country, but like that game still resonates in my mind. Like I'll never forget that day. I think I was like 16. No, I was much younger than that. But I was a kid, and I'll just never forget that. I'll never forget it.
How about yourself, Don?
Bro, it has to be. Both of these games actually involve Barcelona, bro. It has to be when Barcelona came back to beat PSG. Neymar won the class, bro. I think I'll probably say that game. That leg, in fact, both the games. Or Barcelona, Liverpool, bruv. That comeback was crazy.
Yeah.
When Trent took the quick corner, that game was crazy. Probably say that one as well.
Yeah, Twisted Bubba, you've answered the right one. Absolutely, that would have been a great one. For me, there's a few. So one of the first that popped into my head was Arsenal Liverpool, the 4-4, where Arshavin scored 4 goals. That was a crazy match. Then there was another one, which is going to be a bit of an obscure one for people. No one would expect this, but back in the 2009-2010 season, Fulham were in I don't know if it was called the Europa League or the UEFA Cup, but they were in it. And they played Juve and got beat 3-1 in the first leg in Turin. And the second leg, it was an early kickoff. I remember it. Middle of March. And they beat them 4-1. They went 1-0 down. So it was 4-1 on aggregate to Juve, a seasoned European side. And Fulham, of all clubs, came back and beat them 4-1 on the day and went through. And it was just watching like a club that had only 10, 11, 15 years earlier was like a League Two team do that was amazing. But probably the standout one now for me was actually, you mentioned Liverpool's against Barca. Mine was the next night when Spurs came back against Ajax because they were dead and buried.
Oh, yeah.
They conceded first, and that kind of like late hat trick and that last kick of the ball from Moura was just a madness. So yeah, those 3 games always stand out to me as some of the best matches for emotion, drama, twists and turns that I've personally
You just reminded me as well when you talk about that Fulham game. Yeah, you just reminded me of Bell, bro, when he scored the hat trick against Inter.
Ooh.
Against Maicon. That was when Maicon was the best right back.
Oh, great game. Yeah, and someone
well.
someone put it in the comments here that game, the winning goal was by Clint Dempsey in the 82nd minute, and he chipped the keeper. It was just class, and they ended up with 2 men sent off on the day, Juve, and it was crazy. David Trezeguet was playing there, Del Piero in that team. They had what's his name, Fabio Cannavaro. Like it was a good play. It wasn't no bums, but I was just it was great. It was a great
honorable mention. I forgot to mention this one. Inter Milan, Barcelona, Pep versus Jose when they beat them in.
And he ran around the pitch celebrating.
No, not that one. That one they lost 1-0, but they qualified. The one before it when they won in Italy.
Oh yes.
I think it was 3-1.
Wesley Sneijder that night. Wesley Sneijder that night was unplayable, if my memory serves me right. I could have got that wrong.
Was amazing. Sneijder, Milito, and what's his name? And Eto. Actually, and
if Sneijder was more serious, he could have won the Ballon d'Or, bruv. He was that good. That good.
I loved Inter Milan that year.
No, they were brilliant. Listen, I want to thank everyone that's tuned in. Thank you very, very much indeed. Make sure you've hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribing. I am live in a couple of hours' time where you can come. We're going to do a live Q&A session. Anything you want to speak about, you can come along and join in with. Plus, you can join in and play me at poker on the GG Poker app. So you can come into the room that I'm in. You can play me and see if you've got the ability to beat me for a little friendly game of poker as well. We'll share all the details on that stream. This is going to redirect you to it, and we'll see you at about 7:15 tonight. Gentlemen, always a pleasure to sit here on a Friday afternoon and chat a little bit of the foosball with you guys. Until next time, take care, goodbye, God bless, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.